So I want to talk to you about a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff that goes on in Windows. So I often use the analogy that Windows is kind of like a car. You know, you learn how to operate it, you get in there and you get behind the wheel and can drive it and all that. But as you know, underneath the hood of that car, there's a lot of things that are happening, a lot of different components that are working together to make that car run. In the case of Windows, there's a lot of things like that happening under the hood. You have a bunch of services that are running in the background. We're going to go over services eventually in this little course. And then there's also this thing called the registry. The registry is a repository, a database that Windows uses to store all of the different settings, parameters, properties, attributes, things that you manipulate in Windows. So, for example, when I specified that I wanted this to be my wallpaper, background in Windows, it recorded that in the registry. Okay, if I configure power settings on Windows, it stores it in the registry. All the things that I change, including my application settings. So if I open up Microsoft Word and I customize the way Word looks, it's going to store that in the registry. Okay, and so I want to go and take a look at the registry right now on this machine. So we're going to go down here to the search bar and we're going to type registry. All right. This will bring up Registry Editor. You can also just type regedit. That's another way to get in here. So Registry Editor or just regedit. You're going to go in there. All right, so as you can see, this is going to bring up this little registry editing tool. Let me just kind of cascade some of these folders here. So the registry, there's actually 5 different files that create these things called registry hives. That's what H key stands for. If you look closely there, you'll see that word H key. That stands for hive key. A hive is kind of like a beehive. And this is where the registry stores all of its information, its different values to remember when you are using your computer. So this is how Windows is going to keep track of all the things that we're changing and saving involving the Windows environment. Now, what do all these mean? Well, if you look at this first one here, you'll see there's one called H key classes root. If you expand that one out, you're going to see all these extensions. Look at all these extensions. Don't they look like file extensions? Well, they are. Have you ever wondered how Windows knows what program to open in order to open a certain file? Like when I open up a text file, it uses Notepad normally. Or if I opened up a Word document, it knows to open Word. If I open a spreadsheet, it knows to open Excel. If I've got all that, well, it knows that because when those programs get installed, it'll actually register in this H key classes root area which program is going to open which type of extension. So that's what this area of the registry does. Underneath that, you have a couple of these registry hives called current. Notice there's one called H key current user and there's one called H key current config. Now, interestingly enough, each of these 2 folders here map to the 2 other folders you see. The H key current user is actually linked with H key users. The H key current config is linked to H key local machine. So here's the deal. When you're using Windows, Windows stores a lot of its config up in RAM, random access memory, which RAM on your computer, the operating system can access very fast. So the word current, this is all stuff that's in memory right now. When you make changes in Windows, you start altering settings, it'll make it to RAM first so that it's in memory, and then it'll write it down to the hard drive. So when your computer changes, shuts down, it's able to know that there was a change. So if I shut my computer down and I turn it back online, when I reboot it, then it's going to be able to pull it off the hard drive and it'll be able to show. So when I set my wallpaper to this right here, it first got written to that to the current area of memory first, and then it got written down to the local machine. Okay, so H key current user, that represents the current user who's logged on, and this involves something called their profile, which I'm going to cover with you later. Okay, and all of their user state, their different settings pertaining to just that one user. If you logged off this user and logged on to another user, you'd have a different area that's stored up in RAM just for that one user. Okay, and then H key users, this represents all the users that are on your computer. These numbers here are called SID numbers that get associated to your users, that identify your users uniquely. So users don't just get identified by name, they get identified by these unique numbers. Again, I always use the analogy, it's kind of like a social security number. It's a number that stays the same even if somebody changes their name. Right here, you have the HKey local machine and you have HKey current config. So the HKey current config is going to involve me going in, and as I'm changing software in the operating system itself, it's going to throw it up in memory in this current config repository first, and then it commits it down to the HKey local machine, which is down on my hard drive. Okay, so the HKey local machine controls all these different settings that are stored locally down on your hard drive for the things you're doing in Windows, including all of your security, like SAM, Security Accounts Manager, which is where passwords and all that are stored, and other security stuff. You've also got the software area where Microsoft stores a lot of information about software that's running on your machine. Okay. Now, as you expand these and you look through these folders are called keys, and you'll notice that some of them have different values. These different values involve the types of data that it stores. So you have types of data that allows you to store strings, which are like words and things that it needs to remember. You've got values that can just store numbers, numeric values. You've got values that allow you to store multiple numbers, multiple words. So a lot of this is saying to turn something on, turn something off. Of course, just like how you don't go under the hood of a car and start messing with things if you don't know what you're doing, the registry is sort of the same way. Okay. You can search for things in the registry by clicking edit, and then you can say find, and you can search for keywords if I want. If I want to search for the word run, for example, I can find this word run. If that's not the one I'm looking for, I could say find next, and it's going to find the next one. Okay, so you can search for keywords that way if you needed to. Why would you need to change the registry? Well, there are, just like under the hood of the car, sometimes you want to modify your operating system in a way that Microsoft didn't expect or necessarily want you to. Sometimes you might need to manipulate something. There are some features that you can turn on that you can't do just through the graphical operating system itself. You have to use the registry to do it. I encourage you to go to Google or Bing or something and search top 10 registry hacks for Windows 10 and see what you find. There's all sorts of things out there that you can manipulate in Windows that they don't let you manipulate graphically. Okay. Now, if you ever was infected by malware, a virus of some kind or something, you could come in. If you could find that value in the registry where that virus was, you could delete it simply by finding the registry key. If you knew what the name of the registry key was, maybe your virus scanner is telling you there's a virus and it's having problems deleting the key, the registry key, because viruses are generally going to alter the registry in some way, shape, or form. If you could find that key, you could then come up here after finding it, and you can go and you can edit and you can click to delete, and that's how you're going to delete a registry key. Okay. All right. All in all, though, again, don't mess around in the registry unless you really kind of gotten used to it and know what you're doing. I encourage you to do a little searching at some of the different registry hacks, and then come in here and feel your way around and just see what's there, because it's really not all that complex of a system. It's a pretty simple idea. They're just storing the different values, and that those values have to be present even after you reboot your computer. So you have some stuff that's in RAM right now, and you have some stuff that's committed to your hard drive. Stuff that's in RAM is the ones that say current. Okay, so that gives you guys an idea of the registry. Again, I encourage you to do some searching around at some of the cool registry hacks that are available for Windows 10 and just see what's out there.